How to learn Blender fast. I've got 6 very quick project-based tips for artists and makers, all you artists and makers out there. First thing is get used to the Blender interface, the GUI. You can see when you open Blender up, it's made of panels. So if we go around with my mouse, you can see these little round edge corners. So when I'm tutoring people, I emphasize this to start with. And again, you can move them around and you can add more panels. This is what I get people to do at the very start. It makes you more confident with Blender, and also it makes you realize how flexible Blender is. It also makes you realize that these modular panels or editor types can be changed to something else. When I was learning Blender 10 years ago, when I was trying to switch from 3ds Max, in the tutorial I went here, it said go to preferences. Now I almost gave up because I didn't know where to go back to 3D. So in each of the panels, the editor types, you just go up to this top left corner and you can switch back to anything you want. First lesson I usually teach people is to do that. As well as the next thing in the first lesson, I usually get people to start to use keyboard shortcuts. So you can see here on the T for tool shelf, if I press T, the tool shelf comes up and it goes away. Keyboard shortcut number 1. You can see that there's some really useful icons. So there's move. So when you start, you're going to be tempted with the interface in these later versions of Blender to just use these icons. You can imagine how long that's going to take if you keep moving your mouse and time wasted. So if you get straight into keyboard shortcuts, you can select this cube. I can press G, I can press R, and I can press scale, whatever I want here as well. If you can also press tab to go to edit mode, and 1, 2, 3 for the sub-objects, vertex, edges, and faces. You've got a mouse. I'd recommend getting a 6-button kind of gaming mouse, and you can apply some of the buttons to the mouse. For example, tab on one of the buttons can toggle you in and out of tab. Edit mode to object mode without having to press tab, which is amazing. So get used to that. The next thing is to learn the universal 3D concepts. So we're artists and designers here. We don't want to be technicians unless you want to be, but this is the wrong channel for you. So in 3D, things like 3ds Max and Blender have similar concepts. You can see in Blender there's a kind of scene hierarchy that you can see in the scene collection, especially when you have parent and child objects. Of course, you've got the 3D workspace. This is usually in a 3D program, the 3D scene. You've got modify and stack parameters. So in Blender, I can add modifiers here for parametric modeling, non-destructive modeling. So I can, for example, add a bevel if I want. Okay, and then I can add another modifier, for example, subdivision. And you can see that we can add a modifier stack. We've got 2 modifiers there as well. Again, this is very similar in something like Max as well, just a different interface. And the next thing is the animation timeline. That's fairly apparent down here. And if we press play, we can play the animation, and we can add keyframes as well. So this is similar in other programs like 3ds Max and Maya as well. Okay, the next thing is transform and mode tools. So get used to the sort of universal move tools that you have in Blender that we looked at in the keyboard shortcuts. For example, G for move, R to rotate, and S to scale. And you can do a whole load of things with rotating, scaling, and moving, especially when we go to edit mode, select sub-objects. We can obviously move things around. We can rotate edges and faces, etc. The next thing is I'm going to delete this old cube, and I'm going to unhide this, which is a photogrammetry scan of a monkey. So don't be put off by no longer using traditional tools. Keep using traditional tools. I draw and I sculpt a lot. With a drawing, you can drag a photograph black and white drawing into Blender, right click it and turn it to grease pencil. And then this is a photogrammetry clay work that I was working on of a monkey. It was 30 centimeters high. Put it onto a pottery wheel and used an app to capture it in 3D. Then I imported it into Blender. So now I can scale, I can modify it in Blender, and then I can output it into a 3D print or into a scene now as well. So for me, if I could choose, I'd choose traditional tools any day. For me, digitally, there's a kind of disconnect between me and the object, but 3D tools are obviously good because that's what I work in. But as I said, if I had the finances, if I was very rich, I'd just do drawing and sculpture. Perhaps I'd get back into 3D for some things. The next thing is to remember your final output. So very quickly, if we're working on this monkey and you want to add some things, do a bit of sculpting on it, then 3D print it out, just try and remember that's what you're doing. 3D very tempting to sort of look at other things, like you might think, oh, I want to animate this, so you can add an armature and you're going to start adding more bones and then trying to attach it to the monkey and going through loads of YouTube tutorials. So try not to do that, it wastes a lot of time, but it's a way to learn, but just balance it. And the next thing is, I'm going to delete this, and finally AI is a good tool as well. So many people at this stage don't like AI, but it can do good things. So for example, image to 3D, I made this component because I sell things on the Starfield's official creator store. So I like sci-fi objects, and also it's a bit of pocket money. So this was made in AI, and if I go to edit mode, you can see it's very topologies all over the place, okay? And obviously if I tried to sell this, this would kind of be immoral, and they'd say it was AI basically. So I used that, so AI can be a starting point, and I used that to make this new object using my own creative ideas, texturing and topology, and this was a starting influence in the same way as an image was as well. So AI is good like that. And also AI can help you with things like Google Gemini. I really recommend Gemini. You can make a gem, you can add information to it, so you can upload a lot of data. For example, you can make a gem that's like your Blender tutor when you don't have the money to pay me, and then, or if you don't want. So there you go. Here are 6 points that will help you to get into Blender quickly in a fast way. Subscribe to my channel, that would be amazing. Like and comment, and you can also check out my blog about this subject with more information and resources as well. I'm just starting to get back into YouTube video making more regularly. Have a nice day. Bye for now.